If you've ever played the video game BioShock, you know it's an absolute masterpiece. I mean, the atmosphere, the story, it's just incredible. You enter this underwater city, Rapture, which was supposed to be a paradise, and, well, you find a complete and utter nightmare. The usual take is that the game is a warning, right? It's showing us what happens when libertarian or objectivist ideas go completely off the rails. But is that what's really going on? Is that a fair way to look at it? Let's dive in and see. The whole game kicks off with a single, powerful question from Rapture's founder, Andrew Ryan. Is a man not entitled to the sweat of his brow? That line just sets the entire stage. It frames everything around this idea of individualism, of achievement, and your fundamental right to own what you create. This is the core promise of Rapture, and it's what kicks off this grand and ultimately really tragic experiment. Okay, so what was this grand experiment all about? To really get the utopian dream that was Rapture, you first have to understand the world that Andrew Ryan was so desperately trying to run away from. For Ryan, the world was run by what he saw as parasites. You had the government in Washington, religion in the Vatican, and collectivism in Moscow, and he believed every single one of them was trying to lay a claim on what he created. In his mind, they were all demanding that the individual sacrifice themselves for some vague idea of a greater good. So what was his solution? It was pretty radical. He didn't want to fix the system. He decided to just leave it. To build a brand new world from scratch, hidden away at the bottom of the ocean. A city that would be totally free from all the rules and moral claims of the world he left behind. So the promise of Rapture was, in a word, freedom. Absolute freedom. It was meant to be a place where your own achievement was the highest possible good. No government red tape, no religious rules, no one telling you to think of the group first. Just you and your ambition. No gods, no kings, only man. It sounds pretty inspiring, doesn't it? A real paradise for the individual. But, well, if you've played the game, you know that the reality of Rapture, it turned out to be something else entirely, a complete nightmare. By the time you get there, Rapture is basically a tomb. A savage civil war has ripped the city apart. They discovered this gene-altering goo called Adam that gives you superpowers, and of course, it led to mass addiction and these horrifying mutations, turning the city's best and brightest into these deranged monsters called splicers. The dream was dead. And this brings us to what most people think the game is about, that BioShock is a cautionary tale. It looks like it's making a powerful case that any society built on pure self-interest, with no rules or oversight, is just going to eat itself alive. A total slam-dunk critique of libertarianism, right? But I don't know, is it really that simple? To figure that out, we really need to get our terms straight. We have to be clear about the philosophy that's supposedly on trial here. People usually point to two connected ideas: Ayn Rand's objectivism and the bigger umbrella of libertarianism. So what do these philosophies actually say? Okay, so objectivism is all about rational selfishness, and that word, rational, is the most important part. This isn't just a free pass to do whatever you want or to step on other people to get ahead. No, it's about using your brain, using reason to pursue your own happiness as your highest goal, and dealing with others as traders, through mutual agreement for mutual benefit. Now, libertarianism is built on a very similar idea, and it often gets boiled down to one simple rule: the non-aggression principle, or the NAP. All it says is that you can't start a fight. You can't initiate force, you can't commit fraud, you can't steer from someone else or their property. That's it. Everything else flows from that. It means all human interactions should be voluntary. It's the ethical foundation for things like owning yourself, owning your property, and having free markets. So you can already see there's a huge difference here, right? On one hand, the actual philosophies say that respecting other people's rights is the whole basis for your own freedom. But in the game, Rapture is shown as this dog-eat-dog world where being selfish just means crushing anybody who gets in your way. And this is where that common interpretation of the game really starts to get a little shaky. And that brings us to the main counter-argument. What if Rapture didn't fail because its ideals were bad? What if it failed because it never, not for 1 second, actually followed them? So let's just ask the question straight up. Did Andrew Ryan's city ever actually run on the principles of free markets and non-aggression that he talked so much about? Well, if you look at the evidence inside the game, it tells a very, very different story. I mean, just look at this stuff. Every single one of these actions by Ryan is a massive violation of that non-aggression principle we just talked about. Seizing a private business? That's just theft, a direct attack on property rights. banning all trade with the outside world, that is the opposite of a free market. And using chemicals to mind control people, that's maybe the worst kind of aggression imaginable. And executing people who disagree with you? Come on, that's not libertarianism, that's just straight up textbook totalitarianism. So you can't really escape this conclusion. Andrew Ryan wasn't some hero of the free market. He was a dictator, a central planner. He controlled everything, the oxygen, the security, and the second someone challenged him, he used the power of his private little state to crush them. He was so scared of losing control that he became the exact thing he claimed he hated. And that's the real tragedy of Rapture. It was never a city with decentralized power and open competition. It was a monopoly run by one guy with a massive God complex. So the city didn't collapse because free markets failed. It collapsed because of one man's spectacular hypocrisy. So, after all that, where does it leave us? Is BioShock's critique of these ideas just totally wrong? Let's try to put it all together. This last comparison really makes it crystal clear. Rapture was a single, centralized system, a monopoly. There was no escape, and it had one single point of failure, Andrew Ryan himself. A real libertarian system would be the total opposite. It would be decentralized, full of competition and choices. If one city became a tyranny, you could just leave, go trade with a competitor. In Rapture, you had no other options. You were trapped. And you know, in a beautifully ironic twist, Andrew Ryan himself gives the final judgment on his own city. A man chooses, a slave obeys. He built a city on the promise of choice, but in the end, all he wanted was obedience. He didn't create a city of free men. He created a city of slaves. So, you know, maybe BioShock isn't the big takedown of libertarianism that it seems to be. Maybe it's telling a much older, more timeless story about how even the most noble ideas can be twisted and corrupted by a simple human lust for power. And it leaves us with a really important question to think about. When a utopia burns to the ground, do you blame the blueprint or do you blame the builder?